Hi, I'm Garm and this is Midgardia's cool crowdfunding show. I'm here today with James Armstrong again. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. It's a wonderful wintry day. So,
Yeah,
why don't you tell us a little bit about Shadows of Korea?
sure. Shadows of Korea is a setting book for GeneFunk 2090, and it is mostly a sandbox setting book that is set in the city of Busan. Some people might be familiar with that from the movie The Train to Busan. It's the second biggest city in Korea, and it's a mixture of battle maps, city maps, and 10 different contracts, which are kind of one or two or three game session adventures or merc contracts, a bunch of NPCs that are fully described with art, and also some new mechanics.
Excellent. Do we have the return of Sexy Fishman from the Busan Bamboozle?
Yeah, there, there is a sexy fish man included in there. The aesthetic has changed a little bit. I actually got some art commissioned for him, but yeah, there is the blue lipstick fishman guy
I'm
of the
glad.
smiling fish.
I'm glad to hear that. Also, the art for this the cover there that is fantastic.
Yeah, the artist is amazing. Rashid Al Kokra is his name, and he does a bunch of different book covers. I think he's blown up over the past year with his book cover art. He's getting commissions all the time. Yeah, he's very good.
So, what what's the elevator pitch for why you should pick up Shadows of Korea?
If you're interested in a sandbox setting book, this is what you're in for. I mean, if you already own GeneFunk, if you're the type of person that likes to have a setting book to work with, this is the perfect place to start. Yeah, it's got a list of over 40 described NPCs, and each of the NPCs have their general goals and their specific goals included. So the GM doesn't have to come up with them off the top of their heads. They just by giving NPCs goals, it automatically creates conflicts. And I've structured them such that they're all aligned with different factions that have competing goals as well. So a GM should be able to work with all of the NPCs and factions on the fly because each of them have their own general and specific goals. So that should let them be more flexible and adaptive to working with whatever whatever crazy player group you have that goes off the rails. This book should provide the context to allow you to just be adaptive. They can go anywhere they want in the city. They can work with whoever they want to work for. And there's a faction system. So if you do contracts for one faction, it will affect your relationships with other factions. And that will mean you get paid less with working the ones you have a bad rep with and get paid a little more while working for the ones you have a good rep with. So the players can decide which way they want to shape the corporate, political, and criminal spheres of Busan as they level up.
Right, yeah. So working with the Yakuza is going to, make you more popular with the Yakuza, but less popular with the Triads or what have you.
Exactly. Yeah, they all have their relationships with each other. Yeah, and the five major criminal factions, there's North and South Jopak, which is just the North Korean mafia, the South Korean mafia, and then the Yakuza, the Vladivostok Bratva, and there's also a local transgenic street gang and
Hell,
Shanghai Triad. Yeah.
hell yeah. I like the sound of the transgenic street gang.
Yeah, they're the smiling fish, and a lot of them biohack themselves to have fish scales, and it's like the 2090 version of koi fish tattoo, but biohacked right in them.
Nice, nice. I'm digging it. So, what's Korea like in the far future of 2090?
I actually lived in Korea for over 3 years, so I know what it was like firsthand in 2007. So I based a lot of what I put in there from my experience when I was living there. But in 2090, it is one of the hotspots for human transgenic engineering. So most of the world, while they have a lot of transgenic humans, genetically engineered humans in the same way you can think of like a dog breed for a specific purpose. You might have a dog breed for guarding, a dog breed for hunting. A lot of humans have been bred for specific jobs. And this is illegal in large parts of the world. But of course, as long as it's legal somewhere, it happens. And transgenic humans are everywhere because they're very valuable and they can find a job in whatever they were engineered for anywhere they want to go. So in the North America and Europe, primarily they're immigrants. But in Korea, they're actually, this is where it's legal, it's encouraged, it's a huge booming industry there. It is one of the hotspots for bioengineered humans, and that is one of the major things that's going on in Korea. So in addition to the almost crime war that's happening between the 5 different international criminal factions, there's also a huge transgenic hotspot in Busan, where that's where the transgenic humans are being designed, uh, birthed in birthing facilities, raised for their chosen career. And there's also some friction with certain local traditionalist groups who adopt the made in God's image type mindset when it comes to transgenic humans. They do not think of them as real humans. So there's also frictions with more traditional Korean mindset where they're not down with all the bioengineering.
Right, especially coming from a culture that in our time has some issues with aesthetic values. I guess I'll put it. I can see how that could cause some issues.
Mhm. Yeah, it is the major industry there. They're one of the major producers of it in 2090. But yeah, there is the traditionalist faction in there, and there's a street gang associated with that as well called the Chongjong.
Right, which since the players are almost certainly going to pick various transgenic types, leads to a lot of fun, I assume.
Oh yeah, yeah. There is a path outlined in there if they do want to ally with the traditionalist anti-transgenic factions, but they're not the power players in the city just because you know bioengineered humans, it works. It's on the side of corporations and capitalism, so it's kind of a losing battle to fight against it because big industry wants it, and there's the general public mostly want it as well.
And for good or for ill, what big industry wants, big industry gets.
That's right. Yeah.
So I do have one specific question about Korea.
Mm.
Is the Hotel Ryugyong finally finished by 2090?
I which hotel you mentioned? I'm not familiar with that hotel.
The Hotel of Doom in Pyongyang, the like giant concrete pyramid that's sat basically unfinished since 1985, somewhere in there. No, sorry,
Whoa, I had no idea that existed, but
sorry,
I
early,
like it.
yeah, early 90s. They stopped constructing it when the arduous march, i.e., the
Awesome.
Great Famine, started there, and only recently has it had any work done on it, which
Wow.
it's weird. Yeah, and that work was mostly to play a giant LED screen on the top that displays a
Mhm.
waving North Korean flag. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like it's tragic, but also neat how it could fit. I've been in the future I want to work on a 1 to 3 shot module in this setting where there's a center. It's like similar to the Raid movie or Judge Dredd, where ascending levels of a tower, and that sounds like that would fit perfectly for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've actually got a sticker from the Judge Dredd movie on the side of my tower's case, which I obviously can't show because it's down there.
Oh yeah. Actually,
What a
I
film.
just learned the other day that Alex Garland is the one who, even though he wrote that, he's also, the actors involved credit him with semi-directing it, which is maybe why it was good. I like that director. He also did the
Nice.
Ex Machina and Annihilation.
I don't think I've seen either of those. I just watch weird anime nowadays.
His work is almost like weird anime.
I feel like I shouldn't phrase it as weird anime. That makes it sound like I'm watching hentai all the time. Um, but yeah. So I guess the answer of why Korea is your main setting, we kind of covered with you being very familiar with the area and such.
Yeah, it one is the familiarity, and two is just a lot of people think of Japan when they think of cyberpunk, which is fair enough. But in having been to both places, in a lot of ways, Korea fits the aesthetic even more. There's a accidental beauty that happens in the nighttime, where in the daytime, a lot of the buildings are very utilitarian, all square edges, all built quickly, concrete, and kind of boring looking. But once evening hits, everyone is advertising in neon, and that when you're at a long street that goes all the way to the horizon line, it's nothing but pure neon. And there's looking down that is just it's beautiful. It's like art that was made, you know, accidentally. Like it just unfolded that way, and it's so cyberpunk, so cool. And they have towers where people are constructing computers, and it's yeah, I it seems like a very cyberpunky type country when you're there.
Not to mention the constant looming threat of the possible reignition of a war between the North and South and like the DMZ and all that.
That's
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah, in the GeneFunk I got that gets resolved, and just like when the Berlin Wall fell and East and West Germany merged, a lot of the former East German military and a lot of the Russian, when the Cold War ended, the same thing when they collapsed. A lot of the old military end up kind of turning to some criminal activities because they have the skill set and they're not really employed as military anymore. So in the setting, the former North Korean military, just like the former Soviet Union military, many of them end up going to a life of crime. And North Korean mafia is one of the biggest mafias in the world.
right. Because given the way North Korea operates now, they already have plenty of experience with illegal shipping and all that kind of stuff.
For sure. And when that if and when that system collapses and they rejoin, it's a lot of them are not going to be wanting to, work at 7-Eleven or, or something like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Uh, Actually, what happens to the DMZ in 2090? I'm curious.
So the two countries do merge, and the DMZ kind of like it's still riddled with mines, just like much of Vietnam and Cambodia. All those areas in the forest are riddled with mines. But the DMZ it's one country. Korea is just Korea in 2090, and North and South Korea are one nation. Of course, the South is more of a have, and the North is more of a have-not type situation. But it's a unified country.
Right. It's not like a 5 mile wide nature reserve or something. Then
No, no, yeah, it's all unified. They use as much space as they can in Korea. Just the valleys. If it's a valley, there's people there because so much is taken up by mountains. So the mountain areas are more rural, but the valleys are just teeming with people. It's one megalopolis all the way from Pyongyang to Busan, called Pyeongbus. And it's a continuous. There are still separate administrative divisions, but yeah, it's one continuous urban sprawl from Pyongyang to Busan.
that's that's a lot. Goddamn.
Mhm.
Uh, that's too bad. It's actually one of the more niche concerns about reunification is like what happens to the DMZ because there's so much biodiversity there now because nobody can settle there.
Mm,
Um,
right.
but that's cyberpunk. It just kind of gets burnt down.
Yeah. Well, there's even more biodiversity now, be thanks to all the genetically engineered animals and plants.
I like your way of looking at it.
It's just consumer based instead of natural selection based.
Yep, you've got like your cats with genetically engineered advertisements in their fur and stuff instead of
Yeah,
whatever.
absolutely.
Parrots genetically engineered to sing the Meow Mix song or something. Actually,
Oh yeah,
that sounds like a dangerous combination. That's a bad
I'm sure.
investment.
I'm sure there's a Pop Tart cat somewhere in the mix too.
Uh, that's old school. So Is there anything else you'd like to highlight about Shadows of Korea or GeneFunk in general?
Sure. One of the things I like to highlight is just the talent behind it. Miska Friedman does the maps, and he is killer. He's got a Patreon, and he mostly does sci-fi cyberpunk maps, and his maps are very good. So shout out to him. The artists William Liberto, Rashid Al Kokra, very good artists. Yeah, incredible work by those guys. So I guess a quick breakdown just of what the structure of the book is. Part one is the city of Busan, breakdown of who's who, the major players, maps of all of the GU, which are basically boroughs, the equivalent of boroughs, the separate administrative districts. Then there is the section on NPCs, some random encounter tables, and then there's a huge section of contracts, which are individual adventures the players can play. Fully described NPCs and factions with their general specific motives. And then lastly, new rules. So each class gets a new archetype, and there's a few new genomes to pick from as well.
Nice. Is the Cephalopsych one of them?
Yeah, that's not a player character, though maybe in the future it will be. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, a genetically engineered octopus that can mind hack into you and basically bathes in Ritalin in a nootropic called Neutro, and it gives them they're high all the time on a hyper focusing stimulant that makes them very good at hacking into people's brains.
I can see how that would make it complicated as a player option.
Yeah,
You have to like go really old school and do the like races class thing where it's like a paired set. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I this is super cool. I absolutely adore like everything about Gene Funk and your creativity with it. Um,
I
it's
appreciate it.
I I also deeply appreciate that you didn't go jank engineering. That means everybody's elves and dwarves now.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The way I tried to view it was, I always think of Don Draper. I always go back to Mad Men, and someone has to pitch this genome to a boardroom of people or someone who's going to fund it. So almost every genome has a job associated with it. Something. It's always just like dog breeds. There's a demand, then there's the genome. Rather than that's each genome is tailor made for a specific job, and that's why they get made, just like dog breeds.
Right. And is that something you can do to yourself later in life or
And there is one mechanic called a transhuman body conversion, and mostly that's done for purposes of just people wanting to be something else. There's one of the themes of cyberpunk, of course, is the fluidity of identity, and that's present in here as well, where if people have the money, they can reinvent themselves from the cells up to be whatever they want. But one of the caveats to that is they might not be the same person on the other end of it, because once they go through that, mind body dualism is a bit of an illusion, and then people who go through that realize their body is them, and once they're on the other end, they might go through a breakup they might not have gone through otherwise. They're different people. They have different interests. They have the same memories and the same history, but different brain chemistry, different, maybe even limbs, different shape. It's a transformative experience in both physically and in every other regard as well. So people love doing it, but yeah, they often find on the other end of it that they're not the same person who underwent the body conversion.
right, absolutely. Just like any, major experience in your life.
Right. Yeah.
Do corporations ever pay like future Twitch streamers to get genetically engineered to look exactly like one of the characters from their works out of curiosity?
I haven't thought about it, but it's a big world. And if someone can think about it and it's financially viable, then it's out there.
Sounds like something the you ever hear about the promotion for Turok 2 way back in the day where they like gave a lifetime of some ton of money to the first couple and named their kid Turok or something?
Wow. You know, That's something that I might consider if I had a kid because nicknames go a long way. You
And
could just name them Turok, and then nobody will ever know that their name is Turok, and, other than like a nice party. You could pull it out at parties. My actual name's Turok.
I mean, the good thing about that one is Turok is basically entirely forgotten as a franchise, so it just sounds a little weird as opposed to being. It's not like you're named Devil May Cry or something.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's got some character.
Name your kid Bloodborne.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, um, this looks really cool, and I adore GeneFunk. And if you guys are curious as to what GeneFunk itself looks like, there is another interview, which is probably in the sidebar somewhere, and uh, James here was actually kind enough to run a couple of sessions of the Busan Bamboozle for us back in the day.
Which is included in this book. It's been refined and included in the Shadows of Korea book.
Nice. I'm glad that was a ton of fun. Uh, I I'm a lot more happy about my players dying than most people are, but that was still like one of my favorite, character deaths.
It was in a blaze of glory. That's if you got to do it, that's the way to do it.
It's the cyberpunk way. Sometimes you die to your own grenade, like in a car getting punched by like two giant hulking blue. Were they Yakuza?
They were Bratva, Russian
Bratva,
Bratva.
yeah, Bratva goons. That's just life in Busan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to bring up while you're here?
I think that's it. If you're interested in this game, I mean, the Kickstarter includes the core rulebook, and you get for 15 Canadian dollars, which is I think around 11 or 12 American dollars. You can get the entire core rulebook and the Shadows of Korea book PDFs. Yeah, for that price. So for returning people, they can pay a little bit less, but yeah, it's out there. Check out Kickstarter.
That is a darn fine deal for some fun some fun cyberpunk adventures that are a little bit off the beaten path.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of psychedelic weird stuff,
And hot fishmen.
and hot fishmen. Yeah,
Well, James, once again, it has been wonderful to talk to you.
same to you. Thanks.
And for those of you watching at home, have a good night.